few weeks ago, my dad came home with an unusual job offer. One of his co-workers needed someone trustworthy to watch the house for a few days while he was away. The job came with a catch, though. The house had an extensive CCTV system, with cameras in every room, all connected to a central monitor. My dad, knowing that I was a computer science major, figured I would be perfect for the job. I wasn't too excited about spending a weekend house sitting, but the offer of $200 for 2 days was tempting. My dad drove me to the house and introduced me to the landlord, a man whose name I can't even remember now. The man insisted that I stay in the upstairs room with the monitors instead of wandering around the house. I didn't mind. I figured I'd spend most of my time there anyway, with the TV on in the background while I did some schoolwork. Ironically, one thing I barely did was actually monitor the cameras. As night fell, I realized I hadn't thought about where I was going to sleep. I went back to the surveillance room and scanned the screen, looking for a room with a bed or at least a couch. That's when I noticed something strange. The screen door behind me was open. I didn't remember seeing it open before. My heart started racing as I scrolled through the various camera feeds, trying to figure out what to do. That's when I saw it. In the living room, a closet door was ajar. I was sure it had been closed before. Panic set in. I quickly texted my dad, telling him to call the landlord and check to see if he was home. Meanwhile, I was glued to the screen. In the dark, grainy footage, I saw a figure, tall and shadowy, step out of the closet. I froze, my hand over my mouth to stifle a scream. But in my shock, I accidentally dropped some heavy object on the table. A loud crash echoed through the room, and on the screen, the figure's head suddenly lifted as if it had heard the noise. Slowly, painfully slowly, the figure began to climb the stairs. My phone buzzed. My dad had texted back. He'd spoken to the landlord half an hour ago, and no one was allowed in the house. I was paralyzed with fear, my eyes darting back and forth between the door and the screen. Then I heard it. A knock. I glanced at the screen and my blood ran cold. The figure was right outside the room. In a blind panic, I made the only decision I could make. I threw open the window and jumped into the bushes below, adrenaline numbing the pain of the impact. I ran down the street, not stopping until I was halfway to safety. My dad called out, his voice a mixture of concern and confusion. He quickly contacted the homeowner, who called the police. The footage showed everything. From the moment the intruder broke in through the back door to the moment I escaped through the window. But the figure's face was never clearly seen, hidden in the darkness. That night was supposed to be easy, just watching a friend's house while he and his family went on a short vacation. They didn't ask for much, just feed the cats, fish, and birds and keep an eye on things. I'd been to their house many times, so I knew the layout well. The day passed without incident. I visited, fed the animals, and sat on the couch in the sunroom to relax. The sunroom was my favorite place in the house, a small room surrounded by windows on 3 sides, with a large TV mounted on the wall. I fell asleep with the TV on, the soft glow of the screen a soothing presence. But something woke me in the middle of the night. The TV was off, and the room was now pitch black. I lay there trying to will myself back to sleep when I heard it, the distinct sound of the PVC gate outside closing. I told myself it was just the wind, but unease crept into my mind. The darkness outside the window was oppressive, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I sat up, my eyes scanning the windows in every direction, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. My heartbeat slowed, and I tried to sit back down on the couch. That's when I heard the crunch of dry leaves outside. My breath caught in my throat. I slowly turned my head, my eyes glancing toward the window behind the sofa. My blood ran cold. There, pressed against the glass, was a face, a man's face, the features distorted by the darkness and the angle, but unmistakable. He was looking at me. I wasn't sure if he could see me clearly, but I knew one thing. I had to act, summoning all the courage I had. I yelled at him to stay away. My voice sounded more panicked than threatening, but it was the best I could do. To my horror, the man didn't retreat. Instead, he walked slowly toward the back door, tentatively trying the doorknob. I froze in fear for a moment, but then I sprang into action. I rushed to the phone and yelled into the darkness that I was calling the police. Miraculously, it worked. I heard footsteps retreating, and by the time I dared to look, the man was gone. I didn't actually call the police. I was too shaken up and didn't know what to say. Instead, I texted my friend and told him what had happened. Then I locked myself in my upstairs bedroom and spent the rest of the night in fear. When my friend's family returned the next morning, we discovered something that made my blood run cold. All of their tires had been slashed. We speculated that someone with a grudge against them had learned of their trip and was planning to break. When that didn't work, they took their anger out on the car. It's just speculation, but it's the only explanation that makes sense. During my college years, I used to babysit for extra money, so when I saw an ad in the library for a weekend house sitter, I jumped at the chance. House watching sounded easier than babysitting, and the pay was good, $200 for 2 days. I called the number and spoke to a man named Chuck. We made arrangements, and that Friday I went to the house. Chuck and his wife gave me a quick tour before they left. It was a big, beautiful house, the kind of place that seemed to require a little extra security when the owners were away. I didn't think much of it at the time. No pets to worry about, no kids to care for, just a quiet house all to myself. The day passed uneventfully. I spent most of my time wandering around the house, admiring the luxury I could never afford, and watching TV in the guest bedroom where I would be sleeping. As the night wore on, I felt a twinge of regret for missing out on my usual Friday night plans, but I reminded myself that the money would be worth it. By the time I turned off the TV, I was exhausted and ready to fall asleep. But just as I was about to drift off, I heard a small click, followed by a soft glow filling the room. My eyes widened, and I quickly realized that the light was coming from under the closet door. A chill ran down my spine. I had closed that closet earlier. I was sure of it. I rolled over onto my side, my heart pounding in my chest. I pulled the covers up to my chin, pretending to sleep while my mind raced. There was someone in that closet. I was sure of it. But I was too afraid to move, too afraid to make a sound. I lay there, paralyzed with fear, each second stretching into an eternity. Then I heard it, the soft creak of the closet door opening. I couldn't see it, but I could hear it. My breath caught in my throat and I squeezed my eyes shut, praying that whoever was there would leave me alone. The room went dark again as the light from the closet disappeared. But the silence that followed was even worse. I didn't hear footsteps, didn't hear the door close. It was as if the intruder had disappeared back into the darkness. But then, with a surge of panic, I realized that I hadn't heard them leave the room. I knew I couldn't just lie there. I had to see if the coast was clear. Slowly, as gently as I could, I rolled over onto my other side. My heart nearly stopped. Standing next to the bed, less than a foot away, was a figure. I couldn't make out the details, but I could see the outline of a hand reaching toward me. Panic set in. I jumped up, backing up against the wall behind the bed. The figure didn't move, didn't react. It just stood there, staring. I didn't wait to find out what it wanted. In a flash, I jumped over the end of the bed, dashed for the door, and ran down the stairs and out the front door. I didn't stop running until I got home, my breath coming in gasps. When I was safe, I called Chuck and told him everything. I didn't wait for him to answer, didn't care about his explanation. I hung up and ignored his attempts to call back. I didn't care about the money anymore. I just wanted to forget that house, forget that night. And I never wanted to see that house or Chuck again. If these creepy stories have got you hooked and have left you craving more creepy content, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll stay up to date with all of our latest videos featuring real-life scares and unsettling encounters. Don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts or share your own eerie experiences. Hit the notification bell so you'll always be the first to know when we post new content. Thanks for your support and stay tuned for more. Josh agrees to house site for his friend in a remote, old mansion that always gives him the creeps. The house is decorated with antique mirrors, each reflecting a different part of the dimly lit rooms. On the first night, as Josh walks past one of the mirrors in the hallway, he notices something strange. His reflection is there, but right behind him, a shadowy figure stands there watching him. He turns around, but the hallway is empty. His heart races as he looks back at the mirror. There's nothing but his own terrifying reflection. Trying to shake off his unease, Josh decides to watch TV in the living room. But every time he glances at the mirror above the fireplace, he sees the same figure, closer now. The outlines of the figure were indistinguishable, a dark blur, but its intentions were clear. It was getting closer, stalking him through the reflections. Panicking, Josh pulled a sheet over the mirrors, hoping to block out the terrifying images. But as he walked back up the stairs, he heard a low, hoarse whisper echoing throughout the house. "You can't hide. Josh froze. The whispers seemed to come from every direction, growing louder and more terrifying. He sprinted to the bathroom, slamming the door shut and looking into the small mirror over the sink. To his horror, the figure was standing right behind him, its hand reaching out from the mirror, its fingers curled around his shoulder. With a scream, Josh turned to run, but he found himself trapped, surrounded by the shadowy figure in every reflection. The lights flickered, and the house seemed to close in around him. The last thing he saw was the figure stepping out of the mirror, its cold hand gripping his neck before everything went black. When Josh's friend returned the next day, the house was quiet. All the mirrors were closed, and Josh was nowhere to be seen. The only clue was a single handprint on the bathroom mirror, smudged as if someone had tried to escape from inside.